Okay, let's see what I can say about Gunslinger here. Oh, I hope I got room in the box for everything now that I got a counter tray in here. It's gonna be tight. So, what can I say that I haven't already said? Well, that's not really the point of these reviews. It's actually more to capture my thoughts. So what it provides is, I think, a pretty decent game in terms of doing kind of this tactical little gun shooting type thing. And it's cute enough, but each game kind of, it's like ASL at least, or Squad Leader more. I've played more of that. ASL at least has the historical modules. It's like Squad Leader in the sense that I play one, and I have kind of this, is that it? And I mean, they do get more complicated. The more complicated ones have the hunting option in there, where you're like hiding from each other, and that would work a lot better. The problem is that is just not gonna work in solo play, I don't think. And then there's the campaign, but the campaigns don't tend, from what I see of these, don't really feel like they're much more than a sequence of events, of showdowns. That's all they are. I don't really see anything in it. I don't know. War Party looks like it throws a whole bunch of new people in, etc. But they're more just like these random things that are strung together that are related to each other than what I'd really want to see with a campaign. The one campaign that looks like it's the real thing is the role-playing game, and that is just going too far in my view. It's just too much detail. It's not really role-playing. It's just, you know, this situation where your characters are all just going to keep running into each other until they die or wander out of town or whatever. And you're trying to keep them happy and score points with them and this, that, and the other. And eventually they upgrade to real characters. And that's all cool too. I'm pretty sure that if, like, my buddy Rob or, you know, was around and we had other people around too, we would probably be playing this for at least a couple months under that kind of circumstance where we'd be playing every fucking day. And I might be miserable about it just because I like to move around between games, but at least I'd be getting a tremendous amount of gaming in. We'd be playing every damn day and, you know, tracking the characters through it. He did this with Lost Worlds even, playing that where he kept the experience points and everything. And I tried it with my ex-wife as well. And, you know, it worked for a little while, but then it gets boring to me pretty quickly. But there are certainly some people who would be into that. For me, I think I would rather avoid these sort of multi-scenario type of designs for the most part, where the scenarios aren't really connected in any vital way. And you could say, well, what about SFB? You played that. Well, yeah, that's true. And in SFB, you know, I ended up largely shifting to the big, giant, you know, doing the whole general war or something like that. Mainly, I'd want to play small games and small campaigns to try to drive interest in other players into doing the general war type thing. And I stopped playing SFB for any other reason, really. It just wasn't interesting to me to play the scenarios on their own, particularly, because there was something bigger within it, sort of. Okay, well, what about the actual design? The design isn't that hard. It's the rules that are. The rules are a particularly terrible style. The programmed instruction isn't that bad in this one, but the writing style, the formatting and layout and all that, it's all suited for one thing, it's all very procedural, which means there's nothing you're going to draw out of it that you kind of remember. So the player aids have to be much, much better than they are. in order to get you up to speed. Once you're up to speed, once you've played it a few times, I think it all just becomes kind of natural. Whatever you've absorbed. And what you absorb might be wrong. In my case, it probably would be if I kept playing it. But it does kind of become a decent little pattern in terms of what you do, etc. But, there's simple things like no good sequence of play. These stupid case structure that's just too tightly packed looking. I don't know how to put it. It's just Avalon Hill managed to make a muddled mess out of just about everything in this era. Except for their most simplest games. Most simplest, that sounds terrible. If you look back at the classics, their rules weren't too bad, but they weren't too good. But once you start getting to their more complex sets of rules, they just really did not understand how to present them so that they were easily readable and understandable. And I think you get to a better stage at some point or another. I know Advanced Third Reich wasn't all that bad. ASL was actually pretty damn good. The original squad leader, though, was horrible. You had to hunt things all over the place. And even before the expansions came. So my biggest gripe against this is the rules. But there's another step to it, which is, it may just be a little overblown for my taste. And it may just be going into too many details, trying to pin down too many things precisely when it can't even be done, right? So if you want to do a tactical situation where everything's really open and where you can handle a lot of detail, you kind of need a game master. And that's probably where this would shine, is a game master reads, kind of understands the rules, and says, screw it, we're going to play with as many of the rules as I can remember, but I'm going to make snapshot decisions in the course of the game, etc. And he could be playing even. But trying to master a set of rules like this, it's like Magic Realm. Unless it's your only game that you're going to be playing seriously, screw it, man. It's not worth it. It's not worth the effort. You're better off kind of fudging it. Common sense can play a fair role in it. If things don't work out, if you're not exactly in alignment with the actual rules, hey, so what? I mean, it's not like this is going to be a perfect simulation no matter what. And that's kind of where I'm sitting with it. And I think played in that sort of way, where one person just kind of has a role of arbiter of the rules and doesn't let the game get too slow ever. I think that's the best way that you could do this. And then you kind of say, well, why don't you just play a role-playing game kind of opposed to each other? Yeah, except that this does give some ability to refer back and say, look, this is how it's meant to be. I think you got it wrong. Let's, try to play correctly from now on or whatever. And it could be a rotating position where somebody's just making, logical calls from their decision, from their point of view for one game, and then it shifts to another person who, again, has a fair grasp of the rules. But otherwise, I think it's going to end up, at least during the middle period of the game, as you're learning all the different segments to it, of just kind of constantly referring to the rules, trying to look through things. Now, there are some things, unfortunately, that are not, that you can't escape that far. For example, the effects of the wound cards, etc. You have to get used to what they mean, what the different wounds effects mean from the table. And there's a lot of lookup and everything that's really kind of annoying no matter what. I think a better layout of the player aids and more of them would actually make this much more playable. A better layout of the rules would make it so I wouldn't necessarily suggest, hey, just fuck the rules, just screw them, put them aside, and try to play it as as close as you can. But those things don't exist. Maybe somebody's made player aids to fill it out. Maybe somebody's rewritten the rules as they did with Magic Realm. I'm talking about the published game here because that's pretty much what I have. And it's always a shame when something interesting is just ruined by, well, whatever the philosophy was over at Avalon Hill. It's not that I don't like complicated games. I think it's pretty clear that I can handle those to some extent. It's that the particular format that Avalon Hill tended to put their complex games in, they just didn't have a grasp on how to teach people effectively. Now, I would have to say that if there was a rewrite of the rules and it was anything like Magic Realm's rewrite, forget about it. Because I think the Magic Realm rewrite of the rules is a worse case than the old AH rules. So anyway, if you're willing to invest time into playing this a bunch, it's definitely worth picking up. You can get used copies in pretty good shape. It's going to cost you a lot, but you can get playable copies that look like they're in good shape for under $100. And if you think about what you get in it and everything, it's not much more than you would be paying for a new, smaller print run game of the same type from somebody like GMT or something. So if this is what you're really into, I don't see any reason not to go for it. If it's not what you're really into, if you want something lighter or something, hey, go pick up Boot Hill and play that in a competitive environment instead of playing it as a pure role-playing game or whatever. And I think you'll have more fun because this does go into a little bit too much detail, and I don't know if it gains a lot in terms of realism by going into that extra detail. It just goes into more detail. All right.